Hello citizens of our nation, RAWR here, and today we're going to be talking about Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. Yes, we have finally made it through the original trilogy. Return of the Jedi is the third film in the series, or the 6th/7th if you go in chronological order. And it is such a fitting conclusion to a fantastic trilogy. That being said, I don't think that this film is quite as good as A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back, but it's still a really solid, really fun film. So in order to spare myself from repeating things that I said in my A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back reviews, I'm just going to tell you all of the good things that have transferred over from those films into Return of the Jedi that are just as good or even better. Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher reprise their roles again, and they are so good. They are fantastic, and like I said in my other reviews, they have such great chemistry together. I just want to highlight Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker for just 1 second though, because his character by far had the biggest transformation throughout the course of this entire trilogy. In A New Hope and even The Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker was just really nothing more than a stupid, naive boy who wanted something more out of his life. In those two films, he often acted on impulse and was very immature. In this film, the transformation of his character comes to fruition, and almost right off the bat, you get a feeling that this is a different Luke Skywalker from the one that we've seen in the previous two films. This is the Luke Skywalker who has been through some shit. He is a lot more wiser, he's a lot more mature, he's really learned how to control his powers. As an audience member, it is so emotionally satisfying having gone through this journey with him, starting with A New Hope and then The Empire Strikes Back, and seeing where he ultimately ends up in Return of the Jedi. And this all culminates in what is personally my favorite moment in all of the Star Wars films.
Heat has made you powerful. Now, fulfill your destiny. Take your father's place at my side. I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Once again, the visual effects and the practical effects were absolutely outstanding, and it really added to the feeling of being in this world. Ben Burtt's sound design was impeccable, and in this film he created the voice of the vile gangster Jabba the Hutt, which is really creepy and really menacing. And on the other end of the spectrum, he also created the sounds of the Ewoks, which are very cute, cuddly, and friendly. That is, until they take on everyone in the Empire and kill a bunch of stormtroopers. And once again, a John Williams score never disappoints. Those are pretty much all of the good things from Return of the Jedi that transferred over from A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. Now let's get into some more positives. I want to talk about the introduction of Ian McDiarmid as Emperor Palpatine. Oh my god, he was menacing and creepy and scary, and I loved him so much. I know that we saw him briefly in The Empire Strikes Back, but I've always considered this film to be his first proper introduction. I love Ian McDiarmid's Emperor voice. Like, if you see Ian McDiarmid like in an interview or doing press, he doesn't sound like that, and I'm absolutely amazed as to how he was able to create such a creepy voice. I also really love his laugh. Like, whenever you have a villain that has a really creepy laugh, you always run the risk of it being way too over the top. And don't get me wrong, sometimes being over the top is good. Like, look at any incarnation of the Joker, for example. Over the top works for the Joker. However, I don't really think that over the top would have been a good fit for a Star Wars villain. So I really like that Ian McDiarmid's laugh was a lot more subdued and eerie. All of those things, plus all of these subtle sensibilities that Ian McDiarmid brings to the Emperor, makes for a fantastic performance. The story in Return of the Jedi is very emotionally gripping. To me personally, the story of Return of the Jedi isn't as exciting or as suspenseful as A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back, but it more than makes up for that with the most emotionally satisfying journey that pretty much any film in the entire Star Wars series has had up to this point. I believe that the two biggest ambassadors of this in Return of the Jedi are Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. It was truly fascinating seeing these two characters not only fight the overall external conflict, but also seeing them fighting their individual, more personal, internal conflicts as well. And the same thing that I said with Luke before applies with Darth Vader too. Having been on this journey with both Luke and Darth Vader, knowing where they were in A New Hope and then The Empire Strikes Back, and where they ultimately end up in Return of the Jedi, really makes for the most emotionally satisfying conclusion to a trilogy that I have ever seen. The film also continues the character development of both Han Solo and Princess Leia, and these characters really go to places that you wouldn't have imagined of in A New Hope. I think that what really makes Return of the Jedi a great film is the development of its characters, even more so than the first two installments, and not only that, but the conclusions of all of their storylines are really strong. Sadly, Return of the Jedi is not without its negatives, but I mean, even though it's not on A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back levels, it's really just a hair under them, and there really aren't many negatives at all. What I will say is that Return of the Jedi, to me personally, did not have the same thrills that the first two did. Don't get me wrong, there are some really entertaining action sequences, like that whole battle at Jabba's palace that takes place in like the first half hour or so of the movie. There's that chase on Endor and the space battle at the end. But really none of these action sequences really had me on the edge of my seat, like for example the trash compactor scene, or the space battle at the end of A New Hope, or the Battle of Hoth, or the escape from Cloud City at the end of Empire Strikes Back. Yes, this film did have a really awesome fight between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker towards the end, but to me personally, that was much more of an emotional character moment rather than a thrilling action sequence. I think that really the only action sequence in Return of the Jedi that offered the same level of thrills as the previous two was probably the Rancor scene. Man, that Rancor, he is huge, he's scary as fuck. That shit gave me nightmares as a kid. And other than all of the emotional character moments in Return of the Jedi, the Rancor scene is probably my favorite scene. Similarly, one thing that I praised about the previous two installments was the world building, and for some reason the world building was strangely lacking in Return of the Jedi. It starts on Tatooine, which we have already seen in A New Hope. Then we get like 2 or 3 scenes on Dagobah, which we have already seen in The Empire Strikes Back. And then the rest of the film takes place on Endor, which is just a giant forest planet, and in space. I feel like there wasn't enough creativity in the production design to create new worlds in Return of the Jedi. Now granted, the very nature of this story does require it to revisit some of the planets that we have already seen in previous installments, but did the only new world in this film really have to be just a giant forest and nothing more than that? Overall, while Star Wars Return of the Jedi isn't quite as good as A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back, it is still a phenomenal ending to a fantastic trilogy. On my rating scale, Star Wars Return of the Jedi gets a 9 out of 10. So, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, have you guys seen it? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Or do you want to see it? Why or why not? Comment down below. Let me know. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe today for more content. Farewell, citizens of our nation. Catch you all next time.